Oh,
You're right. Hello and welcome to our Facebook Live today. Really excited to have a good friend of Toa's, Mark Holton, with us. Mark, welcome.
G'day, Nick. How are you?
Good. Now, I remember when I first met you many years ago. I was actually down the road from our office, which is in Service Paradise, when you were doing the Young Guns event. I think that was one of the first times that I met you many years ago. And we're just talking before, obviously, we went live, and it's been a while since we've been able to do live events, isn't it?
I tell you what, Nick, I'm dying to have another go at Young Guns. Smithink has done that event for a number of years. It's always been a great one, getting some of the real stars in the industry coming through. We're due to do one in March that got delayed till October to November, and it's now next year. So we'll get there eventually. We'll get back to face-to-face. I've got no doubt about that. But these Zoom sessions are certainly the way to go at the moment, but they're a challenge.
They certainly are, and it's one of the things we'll definitely cover off today. So really excited to have Mark with us. For anyone that's watching this on replay and not live, today we're going to be covering a range of different topics. And for those that are joining us live, feel free to jump in the comment box. We'd love to hear from you. Any questions you have that you'd like me to ask Mark, jump in and we will ask them. Mark, I'm going to start off straight away around how do you think the accounting industry and accounting firms have dealt with, obviously, COVID? No one expected it. No one saw it coming. What's your view on how COVID has affected accounting firms in 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. I think, let me start by saying I think the accounting industry have done very well. Yep. You know, we've been forced in a number of different states, and the one interesting thing here, compared to, say, some of the other countries that I work in, is that we have totally different situations happening in every state. So I think, number one, getting thrown back to home and working from home has been managed pretty well. Accounting firms are telling me, because I talked to quite a few of them, that, you know, productivity is good. Staff have adapted to it. Some staff are doing much better with it than others. Some staff are happy working at home. It's rather quiet. Others are missing that interaction in the office, the social, the cultural issues. But I think for something that was dropped upon us without any real preparation, the industry has done well. Firms have certainly moved technology to another sphere, getting operations happening back at the home, and done that very quickly. Work is getting done. Many more digital type meetings. I was talking to a couple of firms recently that face-to-face would do a weekly workflow meeting. Well, one, they're doing that through Zoom, but they're now doing sort of stand-up morning and afternoon quick meetings as well, talking about workflow in the morning and then talking about what you did in the afternoon. So it's become, you know, a much more dynamic type process. I think the industry has also been incredibly busy. Since the Prime Minister announced the stimulus measures, you know, through PAYG support, JobKeeper, JobSeeker and the like, and then it went from there to bureaucrats to work out a system that never ever stopped changing. And then it went back to the client who said, I've got no idea how to do this. Accountant, please help me. The industry's been under lockdown and compliance, trying to get their clients prepared and then maintained with these stimulus measures. I think that's taken up an enormous amount of time with firms, and it's created a bit of variety in what firms are doing as far as billing. You know, I'm talking to some didn't bill it, which did my head in, by the way. Yeah. Some have billed very little on the basis that they would get more, you know, type advisory work out of it later, and others have billed quite commercially. But we've had a good surge of revenue that's come into practices from areas outside our control. But we have to jump in there and we have to look after our client. I think that's what our industry is very good at.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, there's been a few key points. Obviously, I think it's really deepened the relationships with their clients. And I think that's been forced upon them. And I think it's a good thing. I think people will be better for it in the long run. It's definitely advanced technology in the work from home and the remote workforce. It's definitely brought that forward 3, 5, 6 years, if not more. So it's really advanced that. And I've seen a lot of accountants, I suppose, some of them have really struggled. And this is where I'm going to lead into my next question around, obviously, compliance. A lot of what the work has been this year has been compliance, but it also, I say it flips into advisory, because it's really about giving advice, which in some cases you could say is advisory services. How have you seen firms take advantage of this COVID crisis. I don't use the words take advantage in the wrong context, to really enhance their advisory services and deepen those relationships. And I think my question to you is what have they actually done? So the firms that are doing this well, how have you seen that they've been able to introduce more advisory style services during these busy times where compliance has only increased significantly?
Yeah, again, that's a great question, Nick. And going back to the previous answer, they've been very, very busy doing compliance-related activity. But I think firms have also been very busy doing advisory work. Some they never expected to do, let's be honest. The whole provision of getting yourself ready for JobKeeper, JobSeeker, stimulus measures and the like is advisory. I believe the firms have been doing and accountants have been doing advisory for years anyway. We could just happen to call it tax planning, and we happen to build with compliance. And we don't separate it. We don't have KPIs on it. We don't have budgets on it, which makes it very hard to be accountable.
Yes.
But we've always been doing that. So I think more and more so, accounting firms have moved into the advisory model, whether they liked it or not. We're doing more budgets and cash flows for lending. We're doing more, and to answer the question about what I'm seeing with some firms, we're doing more recovery services, which is just Mark Holton's term for it. I haven't quite worked out a sexy go-to-market name for it apart from recovery. But, how do these businesses succeed? I'm an old bloke, Nick, but if I was young, I always think that, if I was young in this environment, I'd be out there at the moment having a cup of coffee with every single business owner that got JobKeeper, because I know they had to be 30% down on where they were last year. And I also know that very few of them have a manageable, realistic recovery plan in place to get anywhere near where they were before COVID hit. So, I had a firm the other day say to me, what should I be doing this side of Christmas? Well, in Australia, Christmas is the greatest excuse never to do anything in December and have a rest of January. Let's be frank. But I'd be out there having a cup of coffee. I'd run off a list of every business that got JobKeeper, and then I'd isolate those that might be struggling to get the next level moving forward from 1 January. And I'd just go and have a cup of coffee and I'd have a chat and I'd unlock their needs, through lack of a better term. And then I'd start to work with them around a recovery plan. I wouldn't worry too much about the old advisory line of let me make your business work more or let me grow your profitability. But I tell you one thing that business owners are going to need soon, and that's strength in cash flow. So I'd be out there talking to them about all that. I'd be lighting little subtle fires underneath the client, and I'd be the person coming in to help them manage that fire. I think that needs to be done. But certainly through this period, we've seen a lot of piecemeal type, and by that I mean one-off type, budgets, cash flows, recovery plans, succession plans in some respects. Some business owners are thinking this is all too hard. I don't think there's ever been a greater opportunity. In the 25 years I've been doing advisory, then what will happen over the next 12 months? I really do. But I'd be just getting into their head at the moment and trying to understand what's keeping them awake at night. I love that line, or what's important to them. And then I'd be engaging with them and keeping that regular, let's catch up cup of coffee, or let's do a teleconference or a Zoom session, just to let them know that I'm there.
And I think, Rob Nixon often says, sell them every service that they need, and they need is the key one. And I think that this is, I suppose, that you may have already answered this question in some way, but how do accounting firms, in your opinion, I suppose, start offering business advisory services or these additional services to clients? What do they need to do to get this moving? Like, how do they not just make this a thing that they had to do during COVID, but actually offer and commercialize and productize it so that it becomes part of their offering and part of their business moving forward? Like, what do they need to do to get this moving?
Again, great question, and really, really relative to the time too, Nick. The first, at Smithink, we have a system that we call the enabler system. It's a 7-step process to move from compliance to reliance, or in my term, profit from compliance, by doing other things with the client. Step 1 is get your firm ready. That's the critical first step. You know, at the moment we're killing ourselves with workload, but generally we're lacking capacity. I think the two biggest killers of advisory is lack of commitment at partner level and lack of capacity at firm and individual level. Okay. The other thing that I think we need to do is we need to get out there and unlock the client's needs, find out what's important to them, work out where their gaps are, and then diagnose the gap, which sort of creates a little disturbance to them, and then start to analyse how to better manage that moving forward and be their partner in success, be their lifeline model moving forward. In my mind, the thing that's critical is getting three things right in the first place, and that's your systems, your processes, and your people. Okay? Which leads me back to enabler step one, prepare your firm for success. We've got to look at what you're selling. We're going to look at how you're going to sell it. We've got to look at how you price it. Believe me, very hard to go to market and the client says to you, what does this cost? And you say, I'll get back to you. Yeah. We need to know that. We need to know what services you intend to offer. You know, is it quarterly board of advice meetings? Is it succession, estate planning? Is it support with receivables, payables management, working capital, cash flow, profitability? Is it a bit of KPI analysis? Is it showing them the financial impact of key decisions before they make it? That's a list of services. When I go into a firm, first thing I say to them is write down what you're currently doing. And it's amazing how many accounting firms do a lot of advisory. I then ask them, how often do you do this? Oh, not that often. Is it piecemeal or is it annuity? It's piecemeal. Who sells it, you or someone else? Oh, the bank generally, or the client. It's not proactive, it's reactive. It's not structured, it's unstructured. So, my mind, the first thing we've got to do is get the structure right. We've got to get your systems, your processes, and your people. And the last thing I would do, Nick, is I would force a good compliance accountant who does the job well and likes doing the job well and say to them, you can become a great advisor. Okay. I'm a big believer in getting the right people in the right roles to do the right tasks at the right pay rate. Not looking around the room and saying, Nick, he's a great accountant, his clients love him, does compliance well, let's destroy his world.
Yeah, I love that saying. I use that saying all day. Right people doing the right work at the right cost at the right time. I love it, and we're exactly aligned on that.
In other words, what I'm saying is build a scalable model. Build a model like compliance that will exist if you're not there.
So, Mark, you've been doing this for 25 years. You make it sound easy. I know that when I talk to a lot of accounting firms, the biggest challenge is they understand that, you know, take out the advisory word. It could just be cash flow. It could be, you know, whatever the service is or the additional product, if they want to productize it and sell. How do you help accounting firms build those systems, the process and training of the team members so that it becomes another product that they do offer to their clients? How do you do that? Because that's the missing part, that a lot of accounting firms, they may do it once, but there's no structured way they do it. How do you help firms integrate that into their business? The system, the process, and the training. How do you help them do that?
Nick, whatever I do with accounting firms, I did in my firm. When I started this journey 25 years ago, I got invited to go and see a piece of software in Sydney that the person who invited me said it will change my world forever. That piece of software was a tool called Optimist, which later became known as MYOB Profit Optimizer.
Okay.
You know what impressed me that day? It was visual. It turned numbers into knowledge, which I've always been about with clients. So I couldn't get that through to them looking at rows and columns of pages of information. So it was very visual, very interactive. I come back and I hit my client base over and over and over again with it, and the client loved it. Day one. Day two, not so much. Day three, you're doing the same stuff you did on day one and day two, son, aren't you? So all of a sudden, I lost the opportunity to create an annuity model. When we sat down and looked at what we did and started to be critical about us, we had no process. We had no structure. Our infrastructure had never been defined, let alone managed properly. So we sat down and we knocked out, and it took a while, a business advisory implementation plan. Okay? In other words, we looked at what we were doing and what we could do. We looked at how we're going to price it, how we're going to package it. We looked at who in the practice should be the people doing this task, this task, this task. We got the partners to sit at the top of the tree looking at how do I engage, how do I develop client relationships, not how do I enter software, data into software. So we went and we started to build a scalable model. And that's when we started to get longevity. That's when we started to get a more annuity-based model. That's when the opportunity on day one was still there and a couple of years later. So the first thing I do with an accounting firm is I do a 45-minute business advisory readiness review or an assessment. Have a chat. Because I like doing it because I learn a bit about the firm, they learn a bit about me. And at the end of that 45 minutes, if all we've done is had a chat, what have you lost? I also use that approach with every client that I did advisory with. I did a bit of a cup of coffee meeting. I unlocked their needs. I had a chat. That's all. And then worked out from that where the opportunity was, if there was an opportunity. If there wasn't an opportunity, I went back into my CRM, which is a critical part of your organisation with advisory, and reallocated them for another look in 3 or 6 or 9 months' time. I didn't do it. My admin team do it. Remember, right people, right tasks, right rate. The next thing I do with the firm is if they're interested, I'll do a full day business advisory implementation day or a planning day. We'll look at your systems, your processes. We'll look at your staff. We'll look at what's necessary to get the structure, the infrastructure, the engagement model, and the delivery models in place. And we'll walk out of that with a realistic, achievable action plan that needs to be done with accountabilities, with people assigned to it and dates for completion. Then once we've got that plan, which allows me to hold the firm accountable, but also the firm to hold themselves accountable, then if they're interested, I'll support them in how to execute that plan. I used to say, sign up with me for 12 months. I don't do that anymore. They need to sort me out. I need to sort them out and work out whether we're the right match. So all I'm saying is invest a day. And what I'm saying before that is spend 45 minutes having a yarn like we're doing today.
So, Mark, I've got a personal gripe with a lot of the technology side of things, and I'm going to ask you this question. I see so many accounting firms go and buy software solutions, and then they look at how to implement them. Do you agree with this approach?
No.
I've got someone aligned with me. Great.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I bought a software package that later known as Profit Optimizer. How did they get me to buy it? They said, how would you like to see the financial impact of key decisions before you make it? I thought I needed that, let alone the client. Yeah. I went back and I put all the data in, not somebody else in the firm. I sat down in front of them. They loved it because it was different, not because of me. I thought I was doing a great job. That was an ego kick in the tail. Okay. If I had my time again, I wouldn't worry too much about software other than software that helps you build systems, processes, people. And I'll be honest with you, I've yet to see any of them out there that does all three. Okay. System-wise, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've got tools, templates, resources I provide to every firm. But most firms already have some of those anyway. It's just a matter of getting them refined. We've got to start to think that software is an aid to deliver, not what, I see a lot of applications advertised, Nick, and through Smithink, we've done a lot of this stuff in the past, as buy me and become the advisor of the future. Grab this report and have quality conversations with clients. I got no doubt that will happen. I just struggled to bill it. So I found I was having quality conversations that made me no money because the client didn't see the value in it. And when they don't see the value, they struggle to pay. I think what we need to do is get our structure right, the process, and our infrastructure, as in who's going to do what, when, how. What are we going to sell? How are we going to sell it? How are we going to engage a client? What proposal system will we use, et cetera, et cetera. And then when the need is right, look for the brilliant software applications in the marketplace that can help me deliver my service in a more structured, in a more dynamic way. The last thing I'm saying is don't look at software in the advisory space. What I'm saying is take it on at the right time, okay? And I'm reluctant to take it on if I don't have a client already engaged. The mistake we made, we went straight to delivery. We got, here's the software, show it to a client, isn't this great? Struggled to bill it, so it wasn't that great for us, okay? We didn't go back and say, step one, get your process right. Step two, get your infrastructure right. Step three, have an engagement model that actually encourages the client to want the advisory stuff. Because advisory is very different than compliance. The government's not going to hit you on the head with a stick if you don't do it. Advisory has to be a persuasive sell where you sell the benefit, but it's a want-based decision, not a need-based decision for many clients. So if you can't, I'll go backwards. If you can't engage them with a dynamic proposal that they sign, if you haven't worked out what you're selling, how you're going to sell it, who's going to do it, how you're going to scale your model, and if you haven't got the capacity and commitment to want to make those changes, there's not much point worrying about delivery, and there's not much point buying software that will eventually assist you to deliver. We've got to get your ducks in a row first, Nick. That's just my thoughts.
I 100% agree, and I agree that technology used to run the biggest technology event for the accounting industry in Australia up until a couple of years ago. I think that's where I actually first met you, and then you invited me to speak at the Young Gun event from there.
And then you come and supported our outsourcing event too. I remember down in Melbourne.
I did. So I think one of the key things with technology is, and I'm a big advocate of technology being an enabler, and I love a quote that Steve Jobs made, obviously many years ago, about put the customer first. So think about the customer experience and then build the technology to enable it. The same thing as what you're saying in a different way, though, is build the system and process and allow the technology to be the enabler at the end of it, not the front part of it. And I think that that's something that the industry unfortunately has gone through, where in a lot of cases we're sold the benefit of this silo technology. So we go, we're going to buy it, but then we don't think about what's the customer experience, what's our internal technology experience for our internal users, when it should be build the system, build the process, then implement the technology that's going to enable that. So I'm 100% aligned with you on that. So, Mark, to wrap up today, we've covered off a lot of sorry.
Could I say one other quick thing?
Please do.
I think the mistake we made in our firm is that we're too transactionally focused.
Yeah.
We weren't strategically focused.
Yeah.
So the thing that we changed when we developed the plan was, let's have a strategic conversation with the client. Let's look at where they are, where they want to get to, how they get there, who does it, when it happens. And then let's bring in the transactional component, which the software in the market is brilliant these days with cloud technologies and the like. Let's build that transactional process to support the strategic objectives. That's really what I'm saying.
Yeah, love it. 100% agree. So we've obviously covered off a lot. There's been a lot of bits to, I suppose, that people that want to watch this again, you can go back. You can watch it on replay if you're watching this live. What would be your advice to accountants to finish off this year strong and really leverage, I think, the goodwill and the relationships they've built with their clients? What would be your advice for them to continue doing moving into 2021 and beyond, with all of that hard work of what they've done this year to build and deepen those relationships? Absolutely.
Great question, Nick. The one thing I'd do is that I'd make a contact point with them and I'd go and have a cup of coffee, providing you can these days. I was at an event the other day where we had a virtual cup of coffee. The thing's amazing what we can do virtually. What I do is that I go out there and have a cup of coffee with them, and I'd unlock their needs. I have a discussion, no objective, no agenda. Let's just see how it goes. I'd isolate the ones who got JobKeeper and the ones that maybe will struggle. I'd have a conversation with them about what their plan is to be able to get back to where they were. Okay. I wouldn't be worrying too much about getting any further in the future. I think that's the next phase. Yep. I'd be out there. In the back of my head, I'm thinking recovery services. At the front of the mouth, I'm saying, how have you gone? What are you up to? What are you going to do in the future? Do you have a plan? Do you have any actions and everything else? Can we get together in the new year and start to do a bit of a strategy day or a strategy session? I'd be out there unlocking as many needs as I could before Christmas and drinking a lot of coffee. Better still take them out for a beer or a glass of wine. Yeah, I don't care how it happens, but I wouldn't be sitting back waiting for Christmas to come. I'd be out there now engaging and having conversations that will create opportunities.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I think we're fortunate in Australia that everything's opening back up. I mean, the borders are opening up. So, I mean, we can get out and we can see our clients again. I mean, I said to you before this started today, we've got the first accounting industry event today with Change GPS Practice Protect. We've got 45 accountants coming for lunch. I'm calling it a long lunch. There might be a few little drinks there, a few thousand little drinks.
It's an early dinner.
It is. It's about, I suppose, I think the key benefit with that is getting in front of your clients, because this is where I think that this is the one point that I think will really help you win. In a lot of people will still be like, I don't know about this COVID. I don't know if I want to go and visit them. So I've spoken to a few accounting firms that are like, the first thing we're doing is we're basically going on the road and seeing every single client, sitting in front of them, because all they've been able to see is Zoom and technology like this. Get face-to-face, a human element you can't beat. So mate, great advice, Mark. I always learn when I talk to you, so I really appreciated you spending your time with us today.
And as a New South Wales, I could not be happier that they've opened up the border to Queensland.
Yeah, well, you know what? We couldn't be happy because we won State of Origin. So you're most welcome to come over and we'll rub it in that we're the winners of that.
We need another webinar for that one.
So Mark, for anyone that wants to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to reach out and find you?
Oh, Nick, the best way to get me is through the Smithink website, which is Smithink, SMITHINK.com. Shoot me an email. I'll give you a call back. We'll have a bit of a chat, unlock your needs and move on from there.
Awesome, mate. Always appreciate the value that you add. 25 years of experience is phenomenal, and you always add value. So thank you so much for your time today and adding all the value you did.
It's my pleasure, Nick. Thanks very much.
Nice. Cheers. Thanks, Mark.
Bye now.